After an unexpected departure from WWE in the summer of 2021, many fans believed we would never see Bray Wyatt in a wrestling ring ever again. But luckily for those who consider themselves fans of Wyatt, his return to WWE has all but been confirmed since Triple H took over as head of creative. Today, we will tell you everything we know about Bray Wyatt's return to WWE, whether he will bring back his Fiend persona, as well as the real reason Wyatt was released last year. WrestleMania 37 marked the last time we saw Bray Wyatt compete in a wrestling ring, and it's safe to say that nobody could have seen anything that happened that night coming. The Fiend lost to Randy Orton to conclude a feud that had been going on for 6 months and seemed to be a damage repair sort of rivalry since the Viper ended Wyatt's WWE Championship run before it even got started in 2017. A decision that many people believe really hurt Wyatt's character and overall momentum, despite being extremely popular with the audience. And while Wyatt was unable to get the last laugh we all thought he eventually would get to enjoy, this result was far from the most surprising aspect of his last match in WWE, because not only did Orton beat Wyatt for the second time at the grandest stage of them all, once again killing his momentum and hurting his perception among the WWE universe, but it happened in a 5-minute squash for a 6-month-long feud that saw everything from Orton getting struck with a fireball in his face by Alexa Bliss to the Fiend getting burned live on pay-per-view. Everybody expected a really big WrestleMania match. The spot they were given on the card also indicated this should have been more than a 5-minute squash, since WrestleMania's opening matches usually set the pace for the rest of the show with action-packed competition. And even though some late match shenanigans cost Wyatt that match, it wasn't too believable that a single RKO would be enough to beat the Fiend, given the amount of damage other wrestlers like Seth Rollins and Goldberg had to inflict on him to put him down. After the match, the Fiend had a brief stare down with Alexa Bliss, who had been heavily involved in his storyline with Orton as a female extension of the Fiend's evil powers, before the lights went out and both disappeared without any further explanation. The following night on Raw, Bliss stated she no longer needed the Fiend, while Wyatt appeared on a Firefly Funhouse segment and spoke about a fresh start and a new beginning. This new beginning never came to fruition, as this would be Bray Wyatt's last WWE TV appearance before being released about 4 months later. The official reasoning behind his release was budget cuts, in similar fashion to fellow superstars who were part of the multiple mass release waves that significantly reduced the company's personnel since the start of the pandemic. But unlike most of his peers who were making at most a couple $100,000, the budget cuts claim is actually quite believable when it came to Wyatt. According to several reports, Bray was believed to be the 3rd or 4th highest paid superstar in the company at the time of his release, with a contract in the $4 million per year range. While this may seem like a ridiculous amount of money for an average at best wrestler, Wyatt's worth came from his immense popularity with the WWE fan base and the amount of merchandise he moved. At times, his merchandise numbers were compared to those of John Cena, who is the biggest merchandise mover in the company's history. So, while it's understandable to release a wrestler who you're paying $4 million without using him on TV, there's a reason behind him not being used in the first place, because when you think about it, it truly doesn't make sense to keep arguably the most over character in WWE out of action for so long. Well, according to several reports, Vince McMahon and Wyatt had a big falling out. Reports indicate that by last year's summer, Vince was simply done with Bray Wyatt, to the point where he no longer liked him personally. The relationship soured to the point where McMahon would loudly use derogatory terms towards Wyatt, particularly critiquing his physique. This all came as quite a shocker, as for a long time, Bray Wyatt was one of McMahon's golden boys, with some even describing their relationship as father-son-like, given Wyatt would often go to McMahon for advice and Vince was never afraid to respond with tough love. The reports add that their ruptured relationship came as a direct result of Wyatt constantly questioning and criticizing his booking and the lack of creative direction that his characters and storylines often had. WrestleMania 37 appears to be the drop that spilled the glass, as The Fiend had always been scheduled to win his match over Orton before McMahon changed the outcome one day prior to the match. Wyatt reportedly didn't take offense with the result of the match being changed, but with the lack of plans for moving forward, as Vince didn't seem to have any long-term plans for The Fiend after his feud with Orton. This explains why Wyatt alluded to a new beginning the night after WrestleMania on Raw, and eventually why we never saw him reemerge on WWE again. Recent reports claim that not too long after Vince McMahon stepped down from his duties as both CEO of the company and head of creative for WWE, both sides started negotiating a potential return. These rumors claim Wyatt is scheduled to make his return at the Clash at the Castle PPV, with him having some sort of involvement in the Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre matchup. While plans are changing day by day, regardless of whether Wyatt shows up in Cardiff or not, it's being said that there is already an official deal in place for Bray to eventually show up in WWE. Similar to Johnny Gargano's situation, where he had reportedly been signed for a couple of weeks before appearing on Monday Night Raw, the reports say Wyatt's return is not a matter of if, but when. However, unfortunately for those big fans of The Fiend, it doesn't seem like the horror character will reemerge on WWE programming. This was reportedly one of the big holdups between Triple H and Wyatt throughout discussions for his return, as the game apparently doesn't want to back himself into a corner with the bells and whistles that accompany the supernatural Fiend character, much like Vince McMahon did when he ran creative. We all remember the disastrous Hell in a Cell in 2019 finish from the Universal Championship match between Seth Rollins and The Fiend, where Rollins managed to retain his title as a result of a referee stoppage. Fans were outraged, as this was clearly a cheap way of keeping the title on Rollins without The Fiend having to take a pinfall or to submit. But seriously? A referee stopping a Hell in a Cell match, which is a match with no rules, due to The Fiend taking too much damage? Mick Foley would like a word there. In any case, it seems both Triple H and Bray Wyatt agreed for him to return to the company with a character that includes elements from his Eater of Worlds Wyatt family days. And no matter which incarnation of Bray Wyatt we end up getting, you can bet the WWE Universe will be really happy to see him back, as he's one of the most creative superstars we've ever seen and is always 100% committed to his craft.